Hi guys, this is Andrew with rockclass101.com, and in this week's ukulele lesson, Steven's going to be teaching you a song that you voted on and requested, which is called River Flows in You. So if I can pronounce it right. Now, as I said, this is a song that you guys voted on and requested, so if you have a song you'd like to request, don't type it in the YouTube box below. Instead, add it to our form post right here. All you have to do is sign up for basic membership, which is 100% free, and that'll allow you to write on the forums. Okay, so every few months we look at that post and we pick a few songs and you guys vote on which one you want us to arrange and teach, and that's how we ended up with this lesson, which I gotta say it was like a no contest between the other songs. This one was super duper popular, and for good reason. It's an absolutely gorgeous song. Now I gotta say, as I worked through and played through it, it's a ton of fun to play, and it's going to be best suited for that upper intermediate player. So it's a really good finger picking song for the advanced intermediate player. Now if you're curious on how I define the beginner, intermediate, and advanced player and what each level should be working on before advancing to the next, click this link to find out. Now with that said, let's talk a little bit about this lesson. So we're going to go ahead and split this lesson into two parts. So this video is the part 1 lesson, and in this video you'll learn the first half of the tune. And then of course in the part 2 lesson you'll learn the second half. So if you want to watch the part 2 lesson, you can click this link right here. Also at that page will be the tabs that you can print off and follow along with, and the really cool interactive on-screen tab viewer. Now this is a really cool feature where you can hit play, you can watch the tabs scroll across in real time, you can highlight bars, loop sections, slow it down to any speed you wish. Just a great asset and learning this song that much easier. And last but not least, you can also find that page by going to the site rockclass101.com and doing a search for River Flows in You. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and hand it off to Steven to teach you how to play this tune, and then I'll see you at the end of the video.
So here it is. You voted for it, unless you didn't, of course, but most of you did, and even if you didn't, I'm sure you'll agree this is a wonderful piece of music, and I've no doubt you're going to enjoy learning this one, even if you hadn't voted for it. I personally have wanted to learn this piece for ages now, but just never seem to have got round to it, so I was kind of secretly hoping that this one would win in the vote-off. If it didn't, I probably would have arranged it at some point anyway, but it did win. So this way I get to teach it to all you lovely people as well, so that's just even better. Now if you haven't heard the original piano version by Yuruma, I recommend definitely going and listening to that just as many times as you can. And when you listen to it, you'll hear that, you know, firstly it's just a beautiful piece of music, but also it's very intricate, and there's a lot going on in this piece. It's also a very emotive piece, and you know, Yuruma's performance has a lot of energy to it as well. Now, a ukulele is not a piano. You see, it's things like that right there, isn't it, that make your rock class membership just so worthwhile. Where else are you going to learn high-level concepts like that? You know, a ukulele is not a piano. I know. Just, if you need to, take a moment, pause the video, just take a moment while you process that revelation before moving on. So even though a ukulele is not a piano, I wanted to get as much kind of piano-ness into the arrangement as possible. I suppose what I'm trying to say is this one is going to be a little bit tricky, but I just didn't think a simple arrangement was going to do this beautiful piece justice. But please don't turn me off in a fit of rage and run away, even if you think this one might be a little bit beyond you. You know, what's the harm in coming along for a look anyway? You know, firstly, I genuinely believe that, you know, we're all capable of anything that we put our minds to. We've just got to put the practice in. But also there's a couple of things about this arrangement that make it perhaps a little more doable than you might think. Firstly, we're just using 4 chords. The whole thing's just based on A minor, F, C and G. That's it for the whole thing. And there's a lot of repetition in this piece as well. Although it is tricky, there's not a huge amount we need to teach our fingers to do. So, you know, with all that considered, I think come along and give it a look, because you might be pleasantly surprised when we get into this. So if you're ready to go, grab yourself one of these things and let's get into it. So this piece is in 4/4 time, and the tempo we're aiming for is about 65 BPM, and that sounds slow, but don't let that fool you, because there's quite a lot of 16th notes in this piece. So in some of these measures, there's quite a lot going on. And I think that's going to be the biggest challenge when learning this piece. For the right hand, it's quite fingerpicky. And the left hand, we are up and down the neck quite a bit playing these melodies. I think that coordination between the right and left hand work is going to be key to getting this piece just flowing smoothly and sounding good at the target tempo. But here's the thing. I think this whole piece becomes so much more achievable and playable if it's played slower. It's the speed that we have to play this piece to match kind of Yuruma's performance, excuse me, that makes this quite tricky. But played slower, it's a lot more straightforward, much more doable. So what I would say is, don't try and get to that 65 BPM tempo too quickly, if at all. I think it's much better to play well slowly than play bad quickly. So even if you never make it to 65, I don't think it matters. If it's playing well and it sounds good, then just go with that. We always talk about playing slowly at first, practicing slowly and gradually building up speed, and that's always important. But I think for this piece in particular, that's going to be essential. That's going to be key to success with this piece. Just taking one measure at a time and just practicing it really slowly, embedding that good quality muscle memory and gradually building up speed. And if it starts to sort of get a bit messy, as you build up speed, just slow it back down again. There's no rush. Just be really patient with this one. You listen to the performance there, when you can play this piece, you're going to sound like a total ukulele virtuoso. So just be patient with it. Maybe make this one of your long-term ukulele goals. It will come with practice and perseverance. It will come, I promise you that. And if it comes quicker for you, that's amazing. But I think slow and steady definitely wins the race with this piece. So let's get into it. We'll start with the first two measures, which make up the intro to this piece. So we'll look at measures 1 and 2 together. These make up the intro, and then we'll repeat them once more. So the whole intro is kind of 4 measures, but it's just 1 and 2 repeated. And measure 2, not very much happens at all really. It's just kind of nothing until the end of measure 2, when we have these 2 pickup notes that lead back into measure 1. So really, the whole intro is just 1 measure that we need to learn. So if we look at it, measure 1, we're starting with an A minor chord, and we're playing all 8th notes in this measure. So we're playing 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So if I play it through so you know how it's supposed to sound, then we'll break it down and have a look at it note by note. Okay, so measure 1. Okay, so that's what we want to hear. If we get into measure 2 as well, we might as well, because I say nothing really happens. Once we finish measure 1, we just keep on counting. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And on the and then the A after the and, because they're just little 16th notes here, we just have these 2 open pickup notes that lead back into playing that once more. So the whole intro, if we play all of it, will sound like this. So that's the whole intro. So measure 1, if we start with this A minor shape, so we're holding the G string at the second with the first finger, and then the A string at the third with the third finger, and we play those 2 outer strings. And again, with the right hand, you can do whatever you're used to or whatever you're comfortable with, but I do find that a kind of traditional sort of finger picking pattern here works quite well, where we have the thumb on the G string, and then the index takes the C, the middle finger takes the E, and the ring finger takes the A string. But if you find something better that works for you, that's fine, but that's how I'd recommend playing it. If you're new to finger picking, maybe go with that technique. So beat 1, play those 2 outer strings with the thumb and the ring finger. Then the and after beat 1, we're going to keep that first finger there held, because we'll come back to it shortly, but we now want to drop the melody down a note to the 2nd fret, so we'll do that with the 2nd finger, and then just take that 3rd finger off, and then we'll play that note with the open E string with it. So a little double stop there, we'll play those 2 notes together. That's the end after beat 1. And then beat 2, we go back to this original A minor shape we had, play those same 2 outer strings. That's beat 2. And then for the and after beat 2, we go back down to the 2nd fret on the A and play that, but without the open E string this time. Just play that note on its own. Okay, and what we're going to do now is we're going to go back up to that 3rd fret once more, so 3rd finger back on, but now we're going to move to this F suspended 2 shape. So we're going to take this 1st finger off and we're going to move it down onto the E string at the 1st fret, and then we'll play that double stop, the A and the E string together. That's on beat 3, and on the and after beat 3, while keeping that held, we just play the open G with the thumb, and then we keep this held for the rest of measure 1 now. This is all just stays on there. So then for beat 4, we go and play the A string at the 3rd, already being held. That's on beat 4. And on the and after beat 4, the final note of measure 1, we just play that E string at the 1st, which is also being held. Okay, that's the end of measure 1. So that would sound like this. And then on to measure 2, like I say, we just kind of count for most of it while that just rings out. And at the very end, on the last 2 kind of 16th notes, on the and the A after beat 4, we just play C and E open. So what I would do for that bit, just as that measure 2 is progressing and we're not doing anything, I would probably, once this shape has kind of done its job and finished ringing from measure 1, because remember the last 2 notes in measure 1 we've played of those 2 notes. As we start getting towards the end of measure 2, I'd probably just bring that over and put it back on there, ready to play that A minor again, because remember we repeat measure 1 after measure 2. So when it's ready to go, it just means that when you play those last 2 pickup notes at the end of measure 2, this is there ready to go. You're not playing those notes and then thinking, right, what am I doing now in A minor next? So I'll put that on now. If that's already there, it just makes that transition quicker. You're straight in there, repeating measure 1 once again. So as we're getting through measure 2, just before we play those 2 pickup notes, move it over, and then it's ready to go. Okay, so let's have a go at playing the intro. So we'll play measures 1 and 2, but then we'll repeat them. We'll play the repeat as well, so we'll play 4 measures in total. Let's have a go at playing that through together now. 3 and 4 and... So on to theme 1, the B section. This, I suppose we can think of as kind of like the verse section to this piece. And we're going to look at 4 measures now. And then those 4 measures kind of make up the basis of this verse type section. We'll repeat those 4 measures again a couple of times within the piece, but the structure's the same the 2nd and 3rd time. There's just little variations that just make it a little bit different each time. But the basis is just these 4 measures, okay? So for measure 3, we're going back to our A minor chord. So we're starting just like the intro. We play these 2 notes, but the rhythm now, there's a bit more to it. As I say, this is where I tried to get a bit of the sort of essence of the piano into this by playing this kind of flurry of notes through measure 3. So there's quite a lot of 16th notes in this one. The rhythm we're going to play is 1 and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a. So after we've played beat 1, when we then hit that and after beat 1, it's just a continuous set of 16th notes all the way through measure 3. So how it should sound is something like this. Now that sounds quite tricky, but it's not too bad. It sounds sort of better than it is, if you like. It's probably more of a challenge for the right hand if you're not used to finger picking. The left hand doesn't have to do a great deal here. So let's have a look at it. So beat 1, we're playing this A minor chord. So we've got our 2 outer strings being picked on beat 1. And then on the and after beat 1, we're going to drop this down. This is just like the intro. Drop down a fret to the 2nd, play that with the open E, that double stop. And then we continue this flurry now of 16th notes. So back up to the 3rd fret, play that with the, just on its own, play that with the ring finger. And then play the G string straight after on beat 2. Then the open C on the E after beat 2. Then on and, drop this back down to the 2nd, and then move it back up to the 3rd. Okay, and then on beat 3, we're going to move to this F suspended 2 shape again, just like the intro. So this is going to come down to the E string at the 1st fret, and then we're going to play that. And the left hand's done now. This just stays held for the rest of measure 3. So we play that note we've just fretted, the E string at the 1st, on beat 3. Then we play the open C, then the open G, then the A string at the 3rd, already being fretted, then back to the open G, then to the C, then to the E string at the 1st, already being fretted, and then the open C once again. So you can see the left hand doesn't do a great deal through measure 3. It's all about the finger picking that makes this sound quite effective, quite kind of like the piano version. So I'll play it again quite slowly. So take it slow. I mentioned this in the intro. Slow is definitely the way forward. But if you analyse that measure as well, you can see all those notes on the E's and then the A at the very, very end. But basically those 4 open C strings that we play within this measure, they're just there kind of just to fill it out and kind of keep it going, keep that rhythm and the flow going through this measure. If we leave those out, we would hear... And that's kind of what you want to hear in this measure. So all those C string notes, those 4 open C strings, try maybe leaving those out the first time you play this. So what we'd have there is 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and that's kind of what we're playing. And then put those C notes in there just to fill it out, but play them quite quietly because they're just filler notes. And pick out those melody notes just a little bit louder. Okay, so then on to measure 4. We're going to slow things down a little bit now. We've got mostly 8th notes in this measure, a couple of 16th notes at the end, but it's a little bit slower. So the rhythm we're playing is 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and a. How that would sound with the notes is... Okay, I'll play that again. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and a. Okay, so let's break it down and have a look at it. So at the end of measure 3, we will hold in this F suspended 2 shape. So what we're going to do now is we're going to keep our 3rd finger on the A string at the 3rd because we'll need that shortly, so it might as well stay there. But the first note of measure 4 is the open E, so we'll take the 1st finger off just to open up that E string, play that on beat 1. Then the and after beat 1, we want to play that note again that we've just taken off, so put it back on the 1st fret, play the E string at the 1st. And then on beat 2, we're going to add our 2nd finger on to the 3rd fret on the E string. That one can come off behind. And then we've got our 3rd finger on there still from the end of the previous measure, so that's just there ready to go. We'll play that double stop, A and the E at the 3rd. That's on beat 2. And then on the and after beat 2, we're going to play the E open, so that can come off, but the 3rd finger might as well come off there as well. So take everything off, and then the E open on the and after beat 2. And then beat 3, we're going to go to this standard G chord shape and play just those 3 strings that we're fretting, not the open G. So the C, the E and the A. That's on beat 3. Then the and after beat 3, we'll play that open G with the thumb. Then on beat 4, C string at the 2nd, but already holding it with our G shape here. Okay, and then the and after beat 4, we're going to play the A string at the 3rd, which would make sense to use the pinky, but we're not going to do that because we're going to think about transitions into the next measure. What we'll do is we'll keep most of our G shape on, so the 1st and the 3rd finger will stay there. 2nd finger, but the 3rd finger, we'll use that one to play the A string at the 3rd. So bring that one over there, pick that note on beat, the and after beat 4. Oh, wrong string. Okay, and then quickly after that, 16th note, the A after the and, we're going to pull that off to the 2nd fret. But by leaving most of our G shape on, that's already there. We don't need to add that on, it's already there from the G shape. We just move the 3rd finger over and pull off to the 2nd fret. Okay, the reason we're going to do that is because we're now going to put our A minor chord back on that we had at the start of measure 3. But when we move into measure 5, that starts with an A minor again. So by having that third finger kind of removed, it's ready just to go back onto the 3rd fret, and we can move our first finger over to the G string. Okay, so that measure 4 would sound like this. So measures 3 and 4 together would sound like this. Okay, so if we look at measure 4, just quickly one more point before we move on beat, the and after beat 3 and then beat 4, these two notes, the open G and the C string at the 2nd, are kind of just little filler notes there, so they're going to be played a little bit quieter. Okay, everything else is melody, but those two just quiet to fill in. Quiet, then that's melody there. Okay, brill. So let's have a go at playing those measures there, 3 and 4 through together. 3 E and 4 E and So on to measure 5. The rhythm we're going to play in this one now is 1 and 2 E and a 3 and 4 and a. And that sounds quite complicated when I say it like that, but if you're familiar with the piano piece and you've listened to it, I mean, hopefully you'll be able to sort of play this by ear. But how it would sound with the notes would be like this. Okay, so a little bit of a tricky measure. So I'll play it with the kind of count with the rhythm. 1 and 2 E and a 3 and 4 and a. Okay, so let's break this one down. So at the start of measure 5, we're back to our A minor again, like every other measure we've started here, pretty much. So same finger in, A minor shape, play those 2 outer strings on beat 1. Then the and after beat 1, the open E, but keep those held. And then on beat 2, the G string at the 2nd, still being held there by the A minor shape. But then quickly after that, we're going to 16th notes now. So on the E after beat 2, we're going to drop this down to the 2nd fret on the A string. So take the 3rd off, put the 2nd on behind, and pick that single note. But then put the 3rd back on to play the 3rd fret, pick that note, and then the pinky is going to move up and play the 5th fret on the A after the and, after the E after beat 2. It gets a bit confusing when we start getting 16th notes in there. But if I played just that section there, what we'd have is... So you could even just practice that just to get that rhythm, because that does come in quite quick there. That little flurry, 2, 3, 5, comes in quite quick. 1 and 2 E and A. Okay, then on to beat 3, what we're going to do now, we'll keep the pinky on the 5th, and what we'll do is we'll just slide it up to the 7th, and then we're going to use our first finger to do a kind of 3/4 bar across the 5th fret. But we don't need to worry about fretting the A string at the 5th, because that's being played by the pinky at the 7th. We only need to put pressure really on the 2 middle strings, the E and the C. So don't worry about doing like a full bar. If that A string isn't fretted, that's fine. It's just the middle 2 strings we want to put the pressure on. Okay, so we play those 3 notes together, 5, 5, 7. That's on beat 3. Then we keep that held, and after beat 3, play the open G while that shape rings out. And then on beat 4, play the A string at the 5th, which is being held now by the shape. And on the and after beat 4, we're going to play that 7th fret, already being held. But then the A after the and, little 16th note, we're just going to slide it up to the 8th. So we pick it at the 7th and just slide it up to the 8th there. So the second half of that measure is, sorry, no it isn't, 3 and 4 and a. So the whole measure together. Okay, so then on to measure 6. The rhythm now we're playing is 1 and 2 and a 3 and 4 and. So what we're going to do, I'll play it first actually for you. And then with the count, 1 and 2 and a 3 and 4 and. Okay, so the first part of measure 6, if we think about where we were, so we were at the end of measure 5 on the A string at the 8th with the pinky, and then for the start of measure 6, all we need to do, move that up 2 frets to the 10th, that's all we're holding with the left hand, play that note with the open C string in the bass, that's beat 1, then the and after beat 1, just play the open G, then on beat 2, just the open E, and then on the and after beat 2, we're going to come down 2 frets back to the 8th, and we'll play that with the second finger. But what I would do, I'd put the first finger on the 7th behind as well at the same time. So when we fret the 8th fret there with the second finger, have that on ready, because when we pick the 8th on the and after beat 2, we're going to quite quickly, little 16th note, pull that off onto fret 7. So it might as well be there ready to go. So from the 10th fret, first and second fingers on together, pick the 8th, pull off to the 7th. Okay, then on beat 3, we're going to move that first finger down 2 more frets to the 5th, and then play that with the open G, 2 outer strings together, that's on beat 3. And then for these final 3 8th notes, and 4 and, we're just going to play at the 7th fret on the C and the E strings, so we'll add these 2 fingers, second and third finger, they're going to go on to the C and the E strings at the 7th fret, and that's going to complete our G chord that we'll hold in here. And what we'll do on the and after beat 3, we'll pick the C string at the 7th, then on beat 4 we'll pick the E string, and then go back to that C string on the and after beat 4. Okay, so measure 6. Okay, so again, those 2 open strings on the and after beat 1 and on beat 2. So we play the melody note, but then these 2 notes, kind of just filler notes, they're kind of left hand piano notes that he plays there, and then melody notes, but then the next 3 notes, these 7th fret notes, again just nice and quiet, just to fill in there to complete that measure. So measures 5 and 6 together would sound like this. Okay, so let's have a go at playing those 2 measures together, a little bit slower than what I've done there. We'll play those together now. 3 E and 4 E and So those 4 measures we've just looked at, 3, 4, 5 and 6, they kind of make up the essence of this verse section. We're going to play those again now, but we're going to put some differences in there, some sort of variations as we go through, but a lot of it's quite similar and familiar. So if we look at measure 7, this is essentially exactly the same as measure 3, except at the very beginning, we're going to play the full A minor chord, including those 2 middle open strings. So all 4 strings together rather than just the outer strings. Okay, so if we think about where we were though in measure 6, because we have just played this C string at the 7th as part of this G shape, that's what we've played there, but then very quickly later, sort of an 8th note later, we need to be here playing that full chord. So what I would do at this point is from the end of measure 7 here, after we've played that C string at the 7th on the and after beat 4, the end of measure 6, as soon as you've played it, I would just slide that finger down, twist the wrist out a little bit to bring these 2 fingers, because the first and the third finger are the ones that are going to come round to hold this A minor. Okay, so as we slide the hand down, twist the wrist out to bring these fingers around, and then they'll be able to drop on where they need to go just in time for playing beat 1. So the end of measure 6. So as soon as you've played it, slide it down, wrist out, A minor in place. right. Okay. Then the rest of measure 7 just continues exactly the same as measure 3. So we'd have... So that's exactly the same. On to measure 8. This begins just in the same way as measure 4, but then it changes towards the end. So I'll play it through for you. Measure 8, we would have... Okay, so a little funky bits going on there with some slides, so we'll have a look at them. But if this is too tricky for you, you can leave the slides out and it'll still sound okay. The slides just add like a little bit more kind of, I don't know, sort of frill to it, just make it sound a bit more fancy. So the rhythm we're playing in measure 8 is 1 and 2 and 3 and our 4E and a. So it all goes a bit crazy at the end there. So we'll play it again with the count. 1 and 2 and... try that again. 1 and 2 and 3 and a 4E and a. But actually there's a 32nd note in there that I'm not even going to try and count. We'll kind of just play that by ear, but we'll worry about that in a moment. So from the beginning of measure 8, we're holding this shape from the end of measure 7. So a bit like measure 4, we start with the open E, then E string at the first, then this double stop. So we've done that all before. But now what we're going to do is play the 5th fret with the pinky, but we don't want to linger on this because we're not really playing the 5th fret. We're just going to use that as a starting point to slide up to the 7th. What we're essentially going to hear is... This is the melody, but by sliding up to it first, we get... We don't get any of that. We get this. Okay, just that little slide, a little bit cheeky, but just makes it sound a bit more sort of fancy, just adds a little bit of something to this. So when you pick the 5th fret, don't linger on it, and then slide up, pick and slide all at the same time, because it's that 7th fret we want to hear, we just want that little frill up to it. Okay, so then on beat 3, we're going to come back down with the pinky to the 5th fret, and add the rest of a G chord on to make this G5 shape. And then on beat 3 we'll play all 4 strings together. And then on the and after beat 3 we're going to hit the open G with the thumb, and then the C string at the second, we're holding that already, with the index, and then we have this little kind of 32nd note frill slide thing going on. So what we'll do, we'll pick the 5th fret. As we do that, these two can come off, we don't need them. And then we quickly slide up to the 7th, but then back down again to the 5th. Just like that there. So we don't pick it again, we just pick it once. Slide up, slide down. Don't slide up and pick it and slide down. Just one pick, 2 movements. And again, pick and slide. Don't pick and linger. It's not that. Pick and slide. Okay, so that is kind of the 4E, and then the ANDA at the end. We come back down to the A string at the 3rd, pick that, pull off to the 2nd. And again, as we put that finger on there, put the first finger on behind, so both fingers are on before you even pick that 3rd fret, and then it's ready to be sort of pulled onto there. Okay, so that's the end of that measure. So measure 8. So try that. If the slides are a bit too freaky for you, you could leave those out and it would still sound okay. And it'll still sound fine. Okay, so either way, if you want to simplify it by leaving the slides, that's absolutely fine. Okay, so measure 7 and 8 together, let's have a look at them. They would sound like this. They sound better than that if I could play it properly, but there you go, that's the essence. So let's have a go at playing those two together, nice and slow, and we'll have a go at doing that now. 3E and 4E and... onto measure 9. Again, this kind of mirrors measure 5, but there are some subtle differences to it. So we're going to start with this A minor 7 shape now. So what we're going to do from our pull off here, which we did at the end of measure 8, we'll just move that first finger back up to the 3rd, and then add the 3rd finger on the E string at the 5th, and play those two together with the open G with that as well. So 3 notes together. Play that on beat 1, and the rhythm here is going to be 1 and 2 and a 3 and 4 and a. So to hear that with the notes. Okay, 1 and 2 and a 3 and 4 and a. Okay, brill. So let's break it down. So we've started there on beat 1, we've played that. What we're going to do now is we're going to add the 2nd finger onto the C string at the 4th fret to complete this A minor 7 shape. We don't need to worry about putting that on before because we don't need it yet. We play those 3 notes first, then we can put it on, play that on the and after beat 1, then play the E string at the 5th, which we're already holding, on beat 2, and on the and after beat 2, pick that A string at the 3rd, again, already part of this chord, so just pick it. But now what we'll do is we'll add the pinky on to the 5th fret on the A string to play that just after that 3rd fret, little 16th note there. So up to that point there, we have one and 2 and okay. Then moving up to beat 3, we're going to take all this A minor 7 chord off, but leave the pinky on, and then just move it up to the 7th fret. And then the rest of this measure we've seen before, because this is now the same as the second half of measure 5. So we play that, then that little slide up to the 8th fret there. So we've seen that before, we'll not linger on that. And then on to measure 10. This is identical to measure 6 until we get to the end, because the end then leads into the kind of the big sort of iconic chorus type section where we have that just really iconic melody. So measure 10, we go up to the 10th fret just like before. Now up to that point it's the same as measure 6, but now what we're going to do is we're going to play this little kind of 4/16 notes that just lead into this chorus section. So what we'll do from here, we're going to add the pinky onto the E string at the 8th, and then we're going to pick the 5th fret on the A, which we're already holding, and then we're going to slide that down to the 3rd fret. Won't pick it, we'll just slide, and then what we're going to do is do the E string at the 7th with the pinky, and that completes that measure there. Okay, so if I play that measure 10 for you all together, we would have and you can hear that, you can tell what's coming next, can't you, after that bit. It gets a bit scary actually. So if this bit was scary already for you, sorry, the chorus bit is probably the hardest bit of the whole thing, but we'll be fine, we'll get there in a moment, it'll be absolutely fine. So let's just have a look at that measure again. Okay, so with measure 9, if we play 9 and 10 together, we would have brilliant. So let's have a go at playing those two measures through together. 3E and 4E and
Alright guys, so this week's ukulele lesson was a ton of fun. This is an absolutely gorgeous tune, and I gotta say, being a piano piece, it translated to the ukulele so beautifully, so well. So with that in mind, I do want to give you guys a friendly reminder that if you wanted to get the tabs to print off, keep for your records, and learn the rest of the tune, if you want to watch the part 2 lesson, you can do so by clicking this link or going to the site rockclass101.com and doing a search for River Flows in You. Now, also on that page was the interactive on-screen tab viewer, so you can literally hit play, watch the tab scroll across in real time. You can highlight bars, loop sections, slow it down to any speed that you wish, and all that fun jazz. So guys, again, I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and we'll see you in the part 2 one. Take care.